Thank you. We'll go ahead and call the council time to session on the 18th of October. So we begin with public comment on agenda items only. I don't see anyone in the audience. How about online? And no one online. Wow.
Excuse me, Councilor Medveji. I also have an amendment to make to the agenda.
Please.
This is under executive sessions. It's adding 7.4, which is real estate RCW 4230 110 subsection 1 subsection B for 15 minutes and possible after action.
Okay. Well, any objection to adding a fourth executive session? Okay, we'll go ahead and amend the agenda. So we'll go right to old business, minutes.
I move approval of the minutes.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And I heard 3 ayes, so I'm assuming there's no nays. All right, motion carries. New business.
None today.
Council reports.
Great, thank you. So last week I brought up Specialized Housing, Inc., which is an organization, just to kind of reiterate, an organization is working to develop some affordable housing for seniors in the Philida area. And there has been some changes, and I will probably not summarize them. I would probably let the county manager summarize those best and kind of give us a briefing on that real quickly.
So we did receive a message. I think Councilor Young received a message from CHIPS. I can't remember what it stands for. Let me look.
I don't know what it stands for either.
Okay. So for them to apply for grants with regards to some of the fees and stuff, they need a sponsor. Ken Lader, our county engineer, did reach out or advise them to reach out to the public utilities, Clark Public Utilities and the sewer district, because those were 2 out of the 3 that needed to have, and we don't have any jurisdiction over that. They were declined sponsorship by those 2 agencies. I did, Ken's on too, so he can provide more additional information, but they have been reaching out to community services. I believe they're meeting with Vanessa this afternoon. They're asking the county to sponsor them for a grant. Internally, we are looking at if we did this, where would it make sense to be part of? Is there any like dollar match? You know, what's going to be involved with this? Their deadline is next Tuesday. So I'm going to let Ken provide a little bit more information before we can talk about potential next steps that we can do.
Yeah, thank you, Kathleen. Council, the only thing that I really would add to that, I did speak, April 1st has been doing quite a bit of legwork since yesterday. She and I were talking about this issue, and April got in touch with the Department of Commerce and got a little more information earlier today that really it sounds like the need for the county in providing sponsorship is just management of the grant. And what I understand that translates to is if the grant were awarded, we would manage the dollars and make sure that they get back it's assigned to the appropriate utility if fees were waived. So there's definitely some coordination that needs to go on there. Where we're a little bit stuck is we don't have this kind of grant management or someone to develop the grant here that's established for this type of effort. So right now, April is also coordinating with Vanessa just to see where this should live. It's most likely not a public works thing, but I'm kind of standing by a third tier in case we can't figure it out. And that's really about what I know. I do have more detail, kind of what happened initially, but I think that's what's most important right now.
So if I can add just a little bit really quickly, this is one of those situations where these are not I don't believe that these are very big grants, but the bigger grants are contingent on these grants. So it's kind of like this domino effect that if they don't get these and they don't have a sponsor, then they are not able to qualify for the other grants as well, which are bigger. And another thing to note that several people have written letters of support for this project, one being Senator Annette Cleveland, the Southwest Washington Area Agency on Aging and Disabilities, our own Dr. Melnick, and Eric Erickson with CDM Services. Something that I think is really important to do. And so the question becomes, at this point, are we able to be their sponsor?
And to speak more to that, the recommendation that I gave to them initially was that so the county, we don't charge service charges for water. We don't have a service charge, an SDC for sanitary. We do have the nexus to the stormwater, but we also don't really charge a service charge for that. All we have is an application and review fee for development. That's why I pushed them back to the different utilities. Unlike the cities of Vancouver or Battleground, where a couple of these grants have been awarded, we don't have a comprehensive view, or I guess we don't work on those utilities directly. And I'm not sure why they were unsuccessful in working with Clark Regional or CPU, why they were denied sponsorship. But I think that does kind of put it back in our realm to see what we can do. And again, that's where we're left with looking for someone who could manage the grant. We are concerned as well, just to make sure that any fees that we did waive, that those were not something we would end up having to recoup ourselves out of the general fund. So we don't want to encumber the fund that way, but that's stuff that we could probably figure out even if we proceeded with the sponsorship beforehand.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm really very clear on this at all. I haven't seen anything in writing, and I'm not quite sure what's being asked of us as the county. Are they a nonprofit entity? Do they need to partner with a public entity? And are they asking for fee waivers from the PUD and the sewer district and us?
I believe the answer is yes to all of those questions, except they might be not for profit. I'm not sure about the status of the developer or the company that has been contacting us. So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, is one of the conditions, though, to partner with a public entity, is that a grant requirement?
Yes, they have to have a sponsorship
And
by a utility or a local government.
is it the grant written?
My understanding is the grant is 95% complete and ready to go, at least what we've been told by the developer. So.
If I could just read real quick from the email, and I apologize, I should have sent this ahead of time. So he says the CHIPS program is a bit odd in that the legislation requires a local public agency or utility to sponsor. Specialized Housing is in process of completing 100% of the application. It will be done by Thursday. We will also provide our team of 14 professionals that have designed and will build to the project over the past 3 years to do 95% of the work if we get an award. Our biggest problem is time. We have to submit our sponsor and prelim application to the CHIPS program manager very soon. The preliminary app must be submitted by Tuesday, October 24th. The complete application must be final by October 31st. Specialized Housing, Inc. will do 100% of the application, but we must have a public agency sponsor or we will lose out on $1.4 million in CHIPS financing. If we lose CHIPS, we will also lose our housing trust fund of $8.5 million loan and $14 million in tax credits. Both of those applications are done and submitted. We are highly competitive. The $1.4 million in CHIPS money is, however, assumed in our total project budget. If we lose this funding, Clark County will also lose 65 units of very low-income senior housing for frail elderly and a $30 million PACE clinic we are partnering on with Providence Elder Place. So I don't like to do things like this on such short notice, so I don't know if there's a way that we can give staff a tentative nod to move forward and get more information. Is there any possibility with that timeline?
Staff's already looking into this, and they have been since early this morning. And Vanessa, like I said, she's meeting with them at 1 or 2. I mean, I think another option was the 1406 funding, which has already been allocated, some of that to the Vancouver Housing Authority. If the council is supportive of doing this, I would do it contingent on no county funding. We're making sure we connect with the other districts because we don't have the authority to waive water or sewage fees, and that we have availability of staff to help and see what that impact is. So I would put it as a contingency on those items, and because the deadline is before your next Wednesday meeting, we do have a Tuesday meeting, and also if we need to also make sure that we can actually not accept the grant if we find something later as well, so it's not binding us completely, and so that we can have time to do our due diligence.
So someone else's time emergency, you know, we really can't eliminate that, and nor do we adopt it as our emergency. I am very supportive of the project, and so if the manager is happy to move forward with those contingencies, I'm happy to move forward because it sounds like a great project. I just wish we knew a little bit more and had more time to actually process the request. So we ran into something a little bit like this with the Corps of Engineers and Friends of Lake Vancouver. They wanted a sponsor, anyone that was an entity, a government entity, and we weren't able to step into that role very easily. We do have limited capacity. Are we still waiting on Vanessa, or?
Her meeting is, I can't remember if it's 1 or 2 this afternoon. So she's meeting with them now.
Okay.
So we're not going to have all that information yet. But I know that April has already reached out to Commerce and that they're reaching out to the other districts already.
So I think that's above and beyond. So if everyone's okay moving forward with the well-stated contingencies, I think we should try to make it happen if we can.
I would agree to going forward with the contingencies, and I'm frustrated with the timeline as well because the CHIPS funding is federal funding. It's one of the few sources for really low-income, affordable housing, and I don't know if we've gotten those funds in the county in the past. And the other question I would have is will there be another round of this funding? I think if we're able to tap into that federal source of funding, that would be very good. And then maybe the next time, I hope there's a next time that it all comes forward in a more timely way.
Okay, so I think we have unanimous from the dais. Did you have other counselor reports?
Nope, I don't. Just wanted to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff, for looking into that on short notice as well.
All right, well, let's work towards the work session requests.
None today.
Okay. Policy issues?
Jordan Bogey for the record. Have a few items for you today on policy issues. Actually, the first is, I think, a little bit related. Vanessa had emailed me a bit ago asking about 1406 funding, and so I've been looking into that side of things, not so much the CHIPS funding. But I had a meeting toward the end of last week with Mark Gasway and Emily Zwetzig and just to kind of ask them about the parameters of that. And I believe from what I've been seeing that the council allocated 1406 funds to the VHA in 2021 and 2022 for the full amount that was received from that tax. And then in August of this year, reallocated some of those dollars to different purposes still within the VHA. But I do not believe that those 1406 funds from 2023 have been allocated to specific projects. And Mark let me know that the fund currently has, I think, about $1.6 million in it. And so those dollars, I believe, from what I've been hearing, are available to be used to support affordable housing development. So I know that's outside of CHIPS, but related and can be used. So I just wanted to let you know about that as an option for the council moving forward, and I'm sure we want to support those kinds of projects. So that's the first thing I have for you today. The second is that I sat in on the BEAD, so the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment webinar last week that the State Department of Commerce released. And so they released their volume 1, which really just describes sort of the challenge process. So if your location was not marked as unserved or underserved, they kind of give you the requirements of here's how you can go about challenging that. Volume 2, which they will be releasing, I believe, in the spring, will be everything else related to that. So that's still to come. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update about kind of how State Commerce is thinking about this. And so there are about 200,000 what they call broadband serviceable locations across the state. So these are places that are either unserved or underserved, but that could receive broadband service. And so getting all 200,000 of those locations served is the goal of the state. And they are still determining how they're going to break apart those 200,000. They were talking about potentially, doing it by zip code, doing it by census tract, trying to put together, I believe their parameters where they wanted these groups to be financially viable. So for the internet service provider to be able to, maintain operations in those areas, contiguous and then reasonably sized. And so we will see what that means for Clark County, but just wanted to kind of give you an update as that process moves forward.
Could I ask a question on that?
Mm-hmm.
How do we, if volume 1 is out and that illustrates served and unserved, how do we stand? Do we want to appeal any of what they've presented?
I think we'll have challenges. We already have a lot of folks saying that we're getting information. I think you had forwarded me one, Councilor Marshall, from a gentleman talking about Comcast said he had service, their whole neighborhood does not. So I think we're going to have to layer that into our broadband maps. So I know Jesse has been talking about that. We have our meeting on Monday with our internal group of how we're going to handle this now that we know what volume 1 lays out the process to be able to handle these challenges. I will say too, in early November, there's a consortium workshop that we've all been invited to attend, and so I can definitely, did you get that email too, Jordan? I got it from the city today, so I'll forward that to everybody as well to be able to attend. So that's the first session that they have out for the tribes and the counties.
How can the general public, understand this information if it was just, out of the blue, an email that I received from a constituent, but if people want to, if they have issues as well, how does that happen?
Councilor Mevaji was on our meeting a couple weeks ago, and we talked about how we get this second round of survey out. We work with the library, and we're going to be doing another round to be able to talk about what the challenges piece. We did really well in our first round of surveys to identify digital equity areas, and as well as if there's major holes in our, what we call the croissant. It's like the crescent roll around the north and the east county of where we have lots of underserved population. So we are going to be having another round of surveys go out, so we'll be putting that on our website. We also talked about internally making a broadband website where we can go to. Volume 1, as you all saw, is really, public's not going to go read Volume 1. We're going to have to break that down and how we can actually get that out to challenge the process if they're showing that they're represented and they're not.
Great. I would just say work with the neighborhood associations as well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then I just have one final item, which is, and most of you have been involved in either the mental health sales tax or the public safety sales tax advisory processes. Those are both wrapping up with the recommendations now, which will be presented to the council as part of the budget process. But I wanted to just say that I think we're still finalizing the numbers, but the mental health sales tax should still have a fairly robust balance left over. I believe there will be some internal requests coming from the county, not through that external RFP process that was done, but just wanted to put that on your radar and just also say that, for new and expanded programs, there are mental health sales tax dollars still available. So,
real quick, Councilor Medved, you made a comment earlier today. So you gave an update on the mental health sales tax and that there's a balance left, but how exactly is the public safety? Is it all the requests consuming everything that's available, or is there funding remaining or not enough funding for the requests?
Yeah, there's many more requests for the public safety sales tax than funding was available, and I believe that there is a little bit of money that wasn't allocated, but that was really left over sort of as contingency for ongoing
Thank you.
expenses.
So just to add a little bit to that, so this was the first round, and I think we had, in retrospect, all agreed that we may have opened the aperture to too many stakeholders. So a lot of normal draws from the general fund were also requesting access to this money. So we were substantially short with all the requests that were made. But it was a good process, and it'll help inform the rest of the budget process. There's also ongoing work on behalf of the sheriff and Amber with with our jail services. Some of the larger requests are being whittled down a little bit, kind of being phased in, and the long and short of it is, I think we're going to end up with $200,000 or $400,000 buffer left over for this first grant year, but it's still well, not grant year, but use of the tax. But this will inform the processes in the future. It was the first time we tried this, and I think it's going pretty well. We had a lot of stakeholders, but we should probably come real close to spending the dollars where the public expected them to be spent.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Councilor Medved, there's a lot, and Jordan mentioned this, there's a lot in that group that they were not able to fund just for amount capacity, and all of those requests will be considered as part of the annual budget as well of the general fund. And I know I said this yesterday, we don't have a lot of ongoing general fund too, so it's going to be a tough discussion as we go into the annual budget process.
Will the funds be easily identifiable within the budget so that the public can see
Yes.
where those dollars are going?
We were very intentional of setting up a separate fund for the public, it's not 1406, but for public safety sales tax for that transparency. And then we will also talk about it during the work sessions and the public hearing as well, but yes.
So is that it?
That was all. Thank you.
Super. Thank you. So I did hear that we now have 4. I missed the amount of time that you're estimating for the 4th.
A total of 50 minutes.
50 is the total.
15 was the last added.
Okay. We never get this right.
215.
2:15. All right, so we're going to go and recess from this to our executive session and expect to return at 2:15.
So the Vice Chair, Councilor Mevigi, has asked to extend executive session for 15 minutes, and they will be reconvening at 2:30. Thank you.
All right, we are back in session. We've completed our 4 executive sessions, and we do have some public discussion about 2 of the matters. So, Glenn, did you have a motion to make?
Yes, I move to approve the proposed administrative settlement memorandum relating to the acquisition of property rights for tax parcel number 181-688-00016 that are needed in conjunction with the project located in the area of Northeast 179th Street at Northeast 29th Avenue.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I think that was unanimous, so the motion carries. And Councilor Marshall?
Yes, I have a motion. I move for Clark County to join the lawsuit as a plaintiff in the lawsuit entitled King County et al. V. Washington State Department of Social and Health Services et al. Case number 23-2-091618, filed in King County Superior Court.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. So I think that concludes our business today. We'll go ahead and adjourn.